Good morning, everybody. So, Troy, I'm connected again here on beautiful Tambourine Mountain. Sun's coming up. If you've not been to Tambourine, it's worth a visit. I really feel like for me, it feels like heaven. I say to my daughter all the time that we live in heaven, being surrounded by nature, birds, and beautiful trees. And at the same time, close, like we're 45 minutes from the Gold Coast, an hour from the airport. Oh, hey, Katia. So yeah, for me, it's really nourishing. So wherever you find yourself, I hope you're well. We might start as we did yesterday with just connecting to this moment and just really being with whatever is in this moment for you. I find this is the quickest way to find like meditation, what meditation offers as a tool. Just really allowing this moment to be as it is the quickest way to get to that. So the invitation is to close your eyes and just bring your attention inwards. So we just tune in and we're just going to see what's present in this moment. And it's not a thinking about the moment, it's a feeling. So we're connecting with what we feel in this moment. And so we're looking for what's the big feeling that's there for you? And just acknowledge it. And then without any resistance, we just allow it. We feel it consciously. To allow it to envelop you. And whether we perceive it as good or bad, it doesn't necessarily matter because it's just what is in the moment. And when we meet it, we realize that it's just energy. Emotion, energy, and motion, it moves. And so let's do it again. What's present in this moment? What do you feel? And whether it's the same or different, we just again meet it and feel it. Without any resistance, without going into a story around why it's there. You just honor the raw emotion. And we feel it. And let's do it one more time. What are you feeling in this moment? And so we're going to talk more about this today, about meeting the moments through feeling. I mentioned in my introduction about me how, as a highly sensitive person, I wasn't supported or wasn't nurtured and told how to actually manage that. And so I resisted feeling a lot. And in resisting feeling, we disconnect from the energy. We disconnect from feeling. And that's the good feelings and what we perceive as bad. In pushing against what we don't want to feel. And in doing that, we can't feel the energy that's all around us. And essentially, that's what meditation is. It's really just reconnecting us back to the energy that's all around us. It's in us. It is us. We're like fish in a fishbowl. You can't really get away from it. Except that we've been unconditionally conditioned. Unconditionally conditioned. We've been conditioned to disconnect from it because we haven't honored our feelings. And so a huge part of this is learning how to feel again and why that's important. So in your own time, I welcome you back. We'll get started with today's session, which was talking around patterns. Just share my screen. I'm curious how people may have went with the different meditations. We've done releasing tension now, we've done right breathing. Does anybody want to share their experience or anything at all that's come up, whether you want to share by unmuting or you're welcome to put it in the chat? No obligation, but I want to offer the space for that. No, that's cool.
Yeah, I just want to say that I like the approach of kind of relaxing and letting everything go so we can actually meditate. So I think this is something that I'm gonna keep doing just before meditation, even just 5 minutes, because it really helped me to actually get into the concentration that I need, and it let me really relax. So I really liked it. It's really good.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Ivan. Yeah, it can be hard to hold our attention still in meditation when we're holding a lot of tension in the body. So just by starting to release the tension, we're supporting the body, and in doing that, it's like, again, it's easier to hold your attention still when you're not fully tensed up. Beautiful. Yeah, it's a great little intervention, and you can do it in just a few minutes each day. As that meditation program within the platform evolves, so does the releasing tension. So typically when we started, we tensed up and we brought tension into the body to over accentuate the tension, so that as we slowly let it go, we can consciously be aware of that letting go process, and we break through that natural tension barrier so that we can let go even more profoundly. But as we go and we develop the skills, you'll get quicker at it, where, for instance, now I just bring my attention here and I just scan the body, and as I move down, I let go, and I feel that same sort of releasing tension. So we get quicker at it. So we're learning new skills here. So what I'm suggesting is that they'll evolve and you'll get better and better at them. Thanks for sharing, Ivan. Kelly mentioned releasing tension method even helps me throughout the day when I find myself stressed or worked up. Yeah. It's beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Let me share my screen. Phil, we'll do releasing emotion today, which is a little bit more an extended version of what we just did. One of the things that I've found is connecting with feeling and learning how to feel again is, for me at least, I think maybe everybody's different in how, what will work for them. And so that's why meditation as an overarching concept is great, because there's lots of different ways to approach it, lots of different methodologies. But for me, like feeling, just really connecting with the present moment and feeling what's there is the quickest thing that drops me into the stillness, into the realization of who I ultimately am. We'll talk more about that today. By way of review, so we talked about sleep yesterday, which was the second of our capacity building modules. If anybody has any questions or comments or anything they want to share there, please do. But we looked at key sleep metrics. We looked at dreams, recovery metrics, and why they're important for longevity and health, and our health span. We looked at sleep goals. The invitation was to work on your sleep goals and a morning and evening routine. Morning and evening routine helps to support how we show up during the day. We looked at right breathing. Breath work is, like I said, it's big at the moment. We did box breathing, but there's lots of different types of breathing. There's some really cool books. The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McGowan and Breathe by James Nestor. Really cool books. And they talk about the importance of nasal breathing. So breath in itself is a whole big rabbit hole that you can go down. Let's just take a quick look at how everybody's doing. I did reach out to everybody as promised. I'm just curious to see how our co-opetition board is going. Yeah. The invitation with this is to support each other to be doing our meditation practice primarily. I understand that not everybody's got an Oura Ring or Fitbit that they can connect in. But we can see slowly. Ivan, just acknowledging you. You're coming in third. Nice work doing your practice. Haley, Kyle, nice. Ruben, you've logged 20. It'd be great to see, what are we, day 3? It'd be great to see 60. Matt, Kerry. If you're not on here and you need help getting set up to be doing that, please reach out to me. Like this is, like I said yesterday, we're creating this together, this experience. And so the opportunity is to support each other and doing our practice. And it's not that I can do your practice for you. It's something that you have to do yourself. And so we're supporting each other to build that habit. And it's in the stillness that you'll find what you're looking for. You can't think your way to, a greater sense of connection to who you are. It's already inside you. What we're learning to do is build a relationship with the mind so that you can just connect to what is already there. So the thing that you're looking for, whether it's a greater sense of meaning, your like who you are, or your strengths, what it means to be you, that's already there. You just got to tune into it. Along the way, you'll become aware of unresolved emotional wounds that contract you into a story you've been told you are. But that's the story that's keeping us stuck. And so we're going to dive into that today. Whole contraction piece. Why is that there? How's that happened? And so we're going to look at patterns. But meditation is a key part of it. So I guess I'm sharing this just to inspire you. Kelly, well done as always. It does take time to build a practice, like a meditation habit around it. And that's why morning routine is important. Like, what's your morning routine? How are you going to make space for it? What's your sanctuary look like? And prioritize it. That's the key. It's like making it important. And I feel like it's that important as if like your life depended on it, because it really does. Until you make the time to sit and observe the mind, to connect to who you ultimately are, well, essentially we're then living in a conditioned reality. We're living in the matrix. We're a slave to our condition. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me either. I've been talking about a giveaway. The giveaway is at Oura Ring. So keep playing full out. Keep doing your best. For those that are watching the recording, keep showing up and watching the replays. And connecting through the platform, doing your practice. We'll talk about a daily log at the moment. So the invitation is to start doing those. But this is it's about $300 US for an Oura. So it's a good piece of kit that equates to over 500 Aussie. And so some lucky person throughout this program is going to receive one of these for free. How cool is that? Give me some love. I think it's pretty cool. I would love to get this. I would love to win this. So how do you win it? Just keep playing full out, like doing your practice every day, doing your daily logs. If you haven't been doing it until now, start. Start. Like we said at the beginning, it's all or something. Just do your best. I understand our life circumstances can dictate that it's challenging to do it, but like I said, we need to prioritize this. We need to make it important because it's you. Like now we're at the point where we need to be ourselves. We need to be more us. Like, and this is a way to do that. I just wanted to invite, like I said, for me, I think it's really powerful to hear personal stories of people that are using the platform, that are developing these skills. And that's what it is. It's skills. Like when we looked at day one, key things, there's key things. Meditation. Why is meditation important? I've talked a lot about that. Sleep. Why is sleep important? We talked a lot about that yesterday. Today, we'll talk about patterns and healing our unresolved emotional wounds. We're going to start talking about that and why that's important, and relating to our feelings and our thoughts in a new way. So I want to invite Cara. Cara is currently doing our Becoming Exponential program. I just wanted to invite her to share some of her experience thus far. So Cara, would you mind unmuting? And I'm going to stop sharing and just spotlight you for a moment. Thanks, Cara.
Thank you, Troy. That the Aura Ring is such an awesome gift. That's amazing.
I know, right? It's like, I think it's amazing.
I have two because I had to upgrade, and so just to get one for free is sensational. I think, yeah, good luck for everybody because it's such a great prize. So I just really want to say hello to everybody. I'm not going to spotlight myself, and just thank you for allowing me to just share a little bit of my experiences in the current program. So I guess you could consider myself someone who's always been interested in kind of my health, but not necessarily that total experience of well-being. And in my life, I did notice that there were some patterns that were occurring both at work and at home that I thought, you know, weren't helping me stay in flow, weren't necessarily allowing me to be kind of the best of who I could be. Anyway, I kind of got to a point where I realized I wanted to do something about it. And I knew Troy and I had known each other for a couple of years, and I was really aware of his deep exploration, his internal exploration, and his, you know, mastery of meditation. So I thought, you know, this course is great because it's like a combination of both kind of, you know, stuff that, you know, can support you emotionally, but also then kind of some of this performance stuff as well. And I'm fairly focused on my career at the moment. So it's fair to say I was pretty keen. I didn't really know what was going to happen. And I actually thought it would be quite slow, right? I thought, the gains, you're going to have to work really hard at this. And, you know, it's going to be a long-term journey. Behaviors take a long time to change. But I was remarkably surprised that within the first week or two, I was really able to transform one of the more problematic relationships that I had at work. So there was a woman who I work with who is brilliant. And I always perceived that she was coming into my patch and that she was like, you know, taking, you know, some of the area or some of the space around the work that I was trying to do. And through working with Troy, I was really able to understand that the feelings that she was triggering, the contractions that she was creating, actually related to some of the stuff that I had in earlier childhood, related to, you know, a feeling of competition between myself and my sister. And through really doing the processing of the emotions, within literally a week, the whole relationship transformed. I saw her as one of my greatest allies. And now we actually are planning to do all our work together. So it didn't, I'm sure I don't know if she's feeling the change, but for me, just this short couple of weeks really transformed that from something that I was being triggered for to really something that now is very productive, and it's a great working relationship. So I guess everybody's experience will be different, but don't discount the fact that you can get really short-term results in the program, and that the processes and the routines that you set up will have lasting effects as well. So
That's beautiful, Cara. Thank you.
yeah,
Tell us a little bit about you, if you can, just for context. Like, who are you? What do you do?
yeah, so I work for the University of Melbourne. I work in the Faculty of Medicine. I am a specialist in digital health, so I'm a researcher there, but I work also in an entrepreneurial capacity. So my primary interest is in how these technologies can obviously help medical care, but also how they can enhance well-being. And so that's why I love the Aura giveaway, because, you know, we're getting to the point where we know what health is, but I think there's a real emphasis in the future on really understanding well-being and how we can move beyond well-being to, you know, transcend that to greater consciousness. And so yeah, so that's I work very much for the establishment during the day, but I'm a pirate at night. So that's
Nice.
me.
And you've got a PhD in digital health photography?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it basically telehealth. I did a PhD in telehealth before COVID, so it's great to have, you know, timed that quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just worth pointing out, like, the thing is, we can get really profound shifts when we start looking at, well, what is the underlying, we call it a contraction. At what point and at what age do we contract that energy in? And we understand, and we'll talk more about this today, there's a part of your psyche that's actually holding on to that, because at some point in your life it needed to keep you safe. But that becomes dysfunctional when you go into, you know, now your adult life and you're feeling those same feelings. And so what we'll learn today, and this is something that in my experience, it does take like a lot of reminding, because this is where we shift from I'm feeling triggered, or I'm feeling like they're in my patch, to realizing there's actually a part of you, there's a young Cara in there that's actually feeling that competition. It's not actually Cara. So it's really learning the habit of relating to these parts of ourselves and knowing that it's not actually you that's feeling it, because you're all here in this present moment with me. We'll talk more about that today, but it's building this habit of being able to support the parts of ourselves that are feeling these things. And in doing so, we then, we don't contract into that story, because we are actually supporting these parts of ourselves, because these younger versions of ourselves are holding on to that energy because we weren't taught how to process it at the time. We weren't nurtured. It's like we hurt ourselves. There's a peak emotional experience and we didn't have the support to be able to manage it. And so we resist feeling it, which contracts it in. And so by finding these parts, bringing what they needed at that time, which is love and compassion, we're able to allow them, we call it unburden them from holding onto that energy, and it releases. And that's where you can get quick gains, because that part is no longer in that role holding on to that energy. And so then as you go about your day and you brush against your experience, you no longer, it's no longer being fired, it's no longer being triggered. And so I'm going to drop into this today. Thanks, Cara.
Thank you,
Appreciate
everybody.
your vulnerability.
Yeah, I really encourage you guys all to take the path and to join Shui. It's it's really worth it.
And obviously building habits around meditation, and we're looking at sleep. So today, what we're doing is dropping in on the pattern side of things. All right, so and like Kelly shared yesterday, and I'm sure Cara would agree, it's not comfortable sometimes. Like this sort of work it can be super challenging because there's a reason why, like we call it the shadow. There's a reason why it's in our shadow, is because it's uncomfortable and it's a big emotion, and we hadn't processed it. We hadn't been taught how to feel it, and so it's in our background. When it gets triggered, typically what we do is we unconsciously resist it, and we're pushing against it, and then what we resist persists, and it can then take over our experience. We find ourselves then reacting from a place of unconsciousness. And depending on the wound, the level of unconsciousness can vary. Sorry, just wanting to move that light. Thanks, Cara. All right, sorry. So yeah, today is the first, we're dropping in onto the pillar around breaking. So we looked at yesterday, or the last 2 days, the modules have been around capacity building. Today we're looking at pattern breaking. So we're going to explore patterns. And so we're going to look at what our patterns, thoughts, feelings, and emotions, explore all those behaviors as well. And then we're going to finish with a releasing emotion meditation. And so, yeah, again, I mentioned it before, like learning to relate to our emotions. It's such a, like we think we feel, like we think that we, because we're overwhelmed by our feelings. Well, in my experience in working with people, a lot of what we think we feel is our unconscious resistance to feeling, to the point where it builds up and then we're overwhelmed by an emotion. But when we learn to meet these emotions consciously in the moment, they dissolve for the most part. In my experience, they always dissolve. And so that's what we're learning to do, is meet these emotions in the moment. And the beautiful thing is, there's a constant reminder. It is the feeling. It's like, what am I feeling? And I know sometimes it can be somewhat unconscious. There might be just something in the background. But that's the cue. Like when you realize, again, it's like meditation. It's like I was lost in thought, and then I realized, it's like, oh, cool. I'm actually feeling something. What am I feeling? And then we just tune into that and honor that and feel it. It's the way to release it. And so we'll talk more about that as we go through, but it's like we're learning to record some of these. Some of these actually have their roots in some big emotional wounds, and we need support in releasing those. Others that you can probably release the energy on the fly, but others you need to actually, it helps to have somebody with you to support you, because the emotion that will come up is quite big. And I've seen more than a few tears shed in my presence as we process these things. And the thing is, everyone's got this stuff. It's part of the human experience. It doesn't mean to say we can have it forever. So we're going to talk about patterns. Who has seen Free Guy, the movie Free Guy, with Ryan Reynolds and Jodie Comer? It's a pretty cool movie. I like this scene. Essentially, it's about a video game and a guy that's in a video game. And this, for me, it sort of depicts on how we get caught in patterns. But then when we take the time to have, like we talk about paradigm shifting experiences on Friday, paradigm shifting experience, we can break free of this conditioned pattern. So I'll just quickly play this. So like guys, it's like he's caught in this conditioned loop. Wake up, eat goldfish, flip blinds, have breakfast, go get coffee, go to work. And then it's not until we have like an experience that we can break free of these patterns. So it's why we focus on these three key areas: capacity building, because it helps us to integrate, it helps us to develop the skills that we need to be more in the present moment. Pattern breaking helps us to like understand what our patterns are, and then paradigm shifting really just helps us to break free of the paradigm, and so that we can look at, well, what patterns do I need to run? And so what we learn is that the brain is neuroplastic. It's one of the key elements is just because we are running a certain code doesn't mean to say that we have to continue to do that. But the thing is, unless we consciously take the effort or make the effort to change it, then we'll continue to run our existing patterns. And the thing is, a lot of these are unconscious. And it's like, how do you find and heal what's in your unconscious? And that's what we're doing here, is like identifying what were the catalyst for those patterns starting and how we can heal them. This here is taken from a research project out of the Imperial College of London, headed up by David Nutt and Robin Carhart-Harris. It's like an intervention. This is like a paradigm shifting experience. And I know I'm jumping into paradigm shifting experiences, but it's interlinked with pattern breaking. And what we see here is a brain. If we can picture it as a three-dimensional, so they actually move through as opposed to two-dimensional. The brain on the right is it's an fMRI scan of energy moving through the brain. So moving through the synapses, the neurons within the brain. On the right are people that have had a psychedelic called psilocybin. And on the left is that they were given a placebo, so there's no active ingredient there. What this highlights, though, in what they were pointing to is there's the same amount of energy moving through the brain on the left as there is the right. The one on the left, though, is the energy is moving through well-worn grooves. So it's the synapses in the brain, like it's the thought processes, they're contained within the same thought processes, where here we see how the brain becomes neuroplastic under experience, and this whole new neural net comes online. And so we can change our brains, is the point I'm highlighting here. But unless we do, our brains, by default, we just follow the path of least resistance. And that's what we've been conditioned to do. But we can see like the potential that we all have. And so, yeah, healing is a part of that. Does anyone have any questions or any comments on this? You can Google it and you can read the full research project. That's pretty cool. And so we look at, well, what's the fundamentals of patterns? And this is adapted from the cognitive behavioral therapy model of emotions. And so there's a contraction, there's initial point, a trigger. We call it contractions because it's a point that it's like a trigger, but it contracts you into a story. It contracts you into one of these well-worn grooves, this identity of who I am. At this point, that changes, it's like there's the potential for so much more, like, well, who am I? And then so contraction, and then there's the thought, which then creates the feeling, which then leads to the behavior, which forms that loop. And so we get caught in this, like once we get triggered, and I'm sure we've all experienced this at some point where something's happened and we've been triggered, and then there's the associated rumination, the thoughts, the mind starts looping, and we're feeling it, and then our behavior is influenced as a result of that. And we can get caught on that until essentially after some time we do something to shift it intentionally, or it moves through on its own accord. Is it fair to say that everyone sort of experienced this at some point? And so what we're learning to do here is observe the thoughts, the feelings, and our behaviors. I will share that paper, Zenny, thanks for asking. And so understanding our contractions, and this is where, so we'll drop into each of these key elements. This is where, like through the I Am Connected, the daily log, and where it becomes such a powerful tool is like, where did you feel yourself contract yesterday? And so there's a lot about the personal development movement that's about focusing on the positive, like peak performance and being our best self, focusing on the positive, and it's important. But at the same time, we want to become aware of the subtleties of where we are being held back. I think I mentioned already, like a mentor once said to me, to get more from your experience, we need to take the handbrakes off. And once we've been triggered and we get caught in this negative pattern, it can derail us for hours, days, weeks at a time. And it can obviously feel very uncomfortable. And so by learning, by paying attention to where we contract throughout the day, and what does that look like? So we kind of, it's like you can feel the trigger, the mind will start looping. You'll find that you're unable to control your emotions, you become more reactive because you're caught in it. And you lose the present moment, you lose that feeling of well-being. It's like you feel that there's something wrong. You get caught in the head, and it's sometimes all the stuff, all the things that all the darkness can come up. Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Eckhart Tolle. I know some of you are. Richard Schwartz calls it arts. I'm going to talk more about it from a internal family systems perspective in a moment. But this is such important work because we can't truly be who we ultimately are whilst we've got these programs running that are keeping us stuck, contracted into a story, into a narrative that doesn't necessarily support us becoming. And so then thoughts. What we learn from internal family systems is a model of psychology. I think it's about 30 years old now, so it's relatively new, which suggests that Freud, who is more famous in the field of psychology, Sigmund Freud, sort of talks a lot about an ego, which is a mind-made concept of self. We all have an ego. And the ego's role is to keep us safe, is to protect us. The mind, you can use the term mind and ego somewhat interchangeably. But so there's a mind-made concept of self and the ego that gets threatened, and when it gets threatened, it can react. And so what the distinction with internal family systems is that Richard Schwartz says that there's actually not one mind-made concept of self. There's not one ego. It's a multitude of different parts. And at each point through our adolescence, from the moment we entered this reality until this present day, whenever we've had a peak emotional experience and we haven't been supported and we didn't have the social and emotional skills to be able to process what was going on, there's a part that was formed, like we call it a contraction, and they've taken on a role. They realized at that point there wasn't the support to help them, so they had to, whether it's get small and hide, whether it's react a certain way, they needed to do this to protect themselves at that point. And so all of these parts have a voice, and this is the voices that we hear in our head. Thought, it's not actually us. Our, we'll talk more about that in a sec, but it's not actually who we really are. It's these parts of our psyche. Because right now, in this present moment, you're here with me now. But there is a psyche, there is a story, there is this like this shadow, which is made up of these parts. And so what we learn to do is relate to these parts. And in such, whenever you're thinking anything, that's not something that's just like inspired from this present moment. It's a part. Like when you get caught in the rumination, when the mind starts looping, when you're looping because you're thinking about something that you've thought about before, then it's a part. There's a part of you that's actually taken over this psychology and this biology. It's what we do a deep dive into this in the Becoming Exponential program. We explore, like, are we the body? Like, what is the body? And we see that it's made up of trillions of individual life forms doing such extreme sophisticated stuff. And in that, we see that I'm not actually the body. And so these parts, they hijack this biology. And so then feelings and emotions, and in connecting with the feelings, it's these parts of us that are actually feeling this. And so when we look at feelings and emotions, it can be helpful to draw a distinction. And this is how I've come to understand it. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% right, but I look at emotion as like it's energy in motion, and we can perceive emotion. And feelings, there's multiple levels of feelings. Like there's physical feelings or sensations. So I'm cold, tired, whatever the physical sensations might be. And then from there, we have more energetic feelings, which is more emotions. The thing is about emotions, they get caught up in our conditioned experience. And so one person can relate to an emotion in one way, where they're unaffected. Another person can get lost, they can get contracted into a pattern. So it's relevant to our conditioning. And then there's another level of feeling, which is more higher self, which is where we start then knowing, as opposed to, it feels like a sense of just knowing. And so we're learning to relate to our emotions. In doing so through the internal family systems model, is that we realize that it's actually not us that's feeling this. It's actually, there's a part of us that's feeling it. It'll become more evident as we move into today's practice. And then behaviors. Behaviors is the result of our thoughts and our actions. Our thoughts and emotions. As we can see here, like, so the driving force. And so our unresolved emotional wounds form the foundation for our patterns. And so what we're looking to do is become aware of they are. They are. Yeah, they are, especially when connected to emotion. And so that's when we learn to relate to the emotion. When we see that it's not I'm feeling this, it's there's a part of me that's feeling this. And this is not just me telling you this. Like there's Richard, Internal Family Systems is a model for relating to our parts. Brendan Bay's journey work, it's inner child work, it's learning to heal our inner child. But inner child work is part of many different modalities. And so what we've done in terms of bringing together a means to be able to process these emotional wounds, we've taken them from a number of different modalities, and internal family systems are found to be one of the easiest ways to explain it. So the thing is, I think we can heal these patterns, like Kara mentioned, and in doing so, we return back to like a state of ease. We return back to the present moment. We return back to our homeostasis, and so we're no longer contracted into that experience. And so within the platform, this is why we've built this daily login. It's like, so let's track where throughout the day. So I already went through this. I want you to become familiar with it. The intention is the goal we're connecting with. I want you to put it in here for your current goal. And to be completing this each day, they're all optional. You can take as long or as little as you like to do it. The invitation is to do it in the morning. But it's like, where throughout the day did you feel yourself contract? And this requires, I'm sure Kelly and Kara will attest, some level of vulnerability, because this can be stuff that we don't want to share with anyone. It can be our shame, it can be our guilt. It's linked to pain generally, of some sort, emotional pain. And so it can be easier not to bring it to the surface, but in doing that, we keep stuck where we are because we're stuck in those patterns. And it's only by being vulnerable and identifying what they are, and then moving through this process, we call it a process. We're processing that emotion, releasing that emotion, and we're free of it. And that requires us to feel what we didn't want to feel at that time, or we weren't supported to feeling at that time. And so here we're learning to pay attention where throughout the day are those triggers, are those contractions, and we log them. And so that we know where they are. The thing is that we don't have just one or two. Like, we're human. Part of the human experience is a multitude. And until we learn as a species to honor the present moment and feel what's arising in the present moment, and knowing that it's and just honoring that without, contracting into our individual story around it, then we're going to continue to make more. And so that's part of our mission here, is to teach people to relate to their thoughts and emotions in a new way, and how to process them in real time in the present moment. You see a healing log on your dashboard, and so it brings up all the contractions that you've listed. And we go through and we heal them. We cross them out when they're done. And some of them are more intense than others, but it's the subtleties. It's like becoming aware of where you're actually holding unresolved emotional wounds, so that you can then just return back to being who you really are. Homeostasis. And so, yeah, like I said, contractions are the thing that help us to identify where we are holding unresolved emotional wounds. Richard Schwartz is, again, we've taken a blend of multiple different models, but it's really inner child work and learning how to process them. He looks at parts as in three key areas. There's three key areas of parts. One is exiles, which is the part that was burdened with the intense pain of what was happening at the time that wasn't being supported. And then there's managers, that they're actually protecting those parts. They help you to be okay, whilst like they'll protect those exiles. And so they form part of our ego. So it's helping us to be okay. And it might, like control, caretaker, judge, like there's different ways that shows up in our behavior. And then there's firefighters. So if that exile gets triggered, then it can bring it up. And so the firefighter's job at that point is to try to put it out, do what it's required. It might try to numb it with alcohol, might binge on Netflix. It might, rage or react, make somebody else wrong, push it out. And so while there's so much noise in our head, there's a multitude of different parts, and these parts can conflict as well. And so then who are we amongst all of that? It's the challenge when we're living in this mental noise. And so what we're learning to do is relate to that. And then the heart of that, Richard Schwartz calls it the self. There is the self. And, his thing is about finding our true self. And that's what I'm about as well. It's like, well, who are you really? And what he points to in that true self, this is a model for processing. We'll look more at that tomorrow, is 8 C's, he calls it. When you're in self, you're compassionate, you're curious, you're clear, you're creative, you're calm, you're confident, you have courage, and you have connectedness, you feel the energy. And so those qualities, are indicative of, I call it I am. It's like you are everything and you're nothing. And so it's that internal stillness. It's ultimately who we are. And so amongst all of that, and so as we learn to relate to these different parts of ourselves, as we feel something, we realize, what am I feeling? Is a part of me feeling this? And then we understand what that part is saying. So the thoughts, we then learn to relate to those thoughts. And then we process it. We call it unburdening. We heal it. And then those parts integrate. They're unburdened. And we essentially get that vitality back. Like Kara mentioned, she's no longer managing that anxiousness around her work colleague. She's then able to bring that energy in creating with her work colleague. It's really powerful. So it's like, who are you really? Are you this conditioned noise, or are you something else? Richard Schwartz calls it the self. I call it I am. It's the God in you that's here to manifest in its your own unique form, to enjoy this separation. It's not this noise that's in our head. And so the invitation is to do an active meditation during the day. So this is part of practice. And so the active meditation is whenever you're feeling anything throughout the day, it's like, what am I feeling? What part of me is feeling this? And so we start connecting with our parts. And so there's a part of me that was contracted around somebody did something. It could be that somebody did something. It could be that you've seen something that is triggered. It could be that you walk into an environment and it triggers something. So we're paying attention to these subtleties. And so throughout the day, whenever you're feeling something, it's not actually you. It's not actually that. It's not actually that. It's a part of you. It's part of your psyche. And our responsibility from this present moment is we're learning to meet ourselves in the moment. And this can be a big concept. And this is like, whilst we get big wins with, healing these relatively quickly, what I've learned is that it takes a little time to actually embed this as a concept where you're consciously connecting with your parts and able to be there for your parts from the place of stillness. Because what happens is we blend. I am this part. I feel this. I think this. I am this. And so you lose the self. You lose the I am. But it's something that everyone can learn. And so the meditation for today is releasing emotion. And we can go into that at the moment, but I want to just open at this point for Q&A before we go into the meditation. Because I know this is it can be a relatively big concept and it's a new concept, but it's so powerful. It's a game changer. You learn this, your life will be changed forever, because it's no longer what we learned. It's no longer the external environment that's the problem. It's like the external environment is mirroring back to us where we're holding unresolved emotional wounds. And this is where the world becomes a mirror. It's like, oh, I'm feeling something. There's a part of me feeling that. And then it's a blessing to be triggered, because it's like, I wouldn't have known that was there. Of course, some of the big ones, you probably know what they are already, but the more subtle ones, it's like, I didn't even know I was holding unresolved emotional wounds around that. And that happened, and now I feel it. And so we can then process it when we know it's there. Questions? Any questions? Is everyone getting this, or is it just curious how it's landing for people? Didn't you get it? Great. How's everybody else going with it? It might be worth watching the replay again. I'll send through a video from Richard Schwartz on it as well. Ivan?
Yeah, I have a question, because I think I understand it, but I have a hard time actually feeling the feelings. It's like if I'm when we do the exercise at the beginning of connecting to the feelings, I always go back to my head and my thoughts, which I guess that's where I live most of the time. So I really like this, but I'm having a hard time actually staying in the feeling. I go back to the the thoughts and what it means and where it comes from and all of these things that is not allowing me to actually feel. And if that makes sense.
It does 100%, brother, and I appreciate that. It is a practice. I was the same, man. I was the same, because I was taught to think, because I didn't want to feel, and I went straight to my head. And it's a practice. We're learning to feel again, and it's not just you, Ivan. I think it's part of the human condition. For whatever reason, we devalued feeling. Well, listen, out in the Western culture, I wouldn't say that it's real in all cultures, but we didn't put, like, I know as a guy, we devalued feelings, and even to the feminine, we haven't appreciated emotional experiences or learned how to process emotion. And so it's a practice, is what I'm saying. You'll get it, but it's something that requires an ongoing, all right, what am I feeling, and connecting with that. We've got other clients in the Becoming Exponential program, the same thing. They're learning to feel again, and understanding what feeling actually is. Like, the default becomes then thinking about the feeling instead of actually just dropping in and feeling what it is. But then there'll be the big ones can be easier. Like when you get caught in like painful ones, then we know that we're actually feeling those pain. Like, I know that I'm really pissed off now. So my invitation to you, man, is just to practice, and you will get it. I was the same. And this is the work. This is the work. This is what could be more important than this. Otherwise, so we can't think. Somewhere along the line, we bought into the reality that the power of the mind and its ability to think, but thinking is the problem. Thinking is the problem. We can't think our way to who we are. We can't think our way to the stillness. It's only by reconnecting to feeling is the fastest way into a meditative state, into knowing who we are. I think it can take years to learn to let yourself take a break from the inputs. Yeah, and that can be true. What I'm suggesting, though, is, like, I've been meditating over 20 years now, and there's certain meditation practices which are better than others for connecting to the energy. And this one here, like reconnecting to feeling, is one that it's a fast track. into meditation. Does anyone here find it easier to feel?
Certainly taken a lot of practice for me, but yeah, finally starting to, well, I finally learned to be able to sit with my feelings, and it makes a whole world of difference, like you talked about.
Yeah, thanks, Kellen. It is that. It's like I've spent a lifetime pushing against feeling. I don't want to feel this. We've been conditioned not to feel. And part of it is, and looking back to you, Ivan, it's for good reason. Like we've disconnected from feeling because it hurts. There's pain there. There's a lot of pain in our individual and collective psyche. But it's in that resistance, our unconscious resistance to feeling, that we disconnect from the energy that's all around us. And that pushes us up into our head, and we think. And then that's the problem. In thinking, it creates separation. It's me versus you. It's into our parts actually take over at that point, and we're essentially living out our wounds. We're existing in our wounds, and that's why we have so much dysfunction and separation on the planet. As we learn to lean into and acknowledge and feel and process those unresolved emotional wounds, and we realize that the world is mirroring back where we're holding as we learn to process that, we realize the energy's here. I'm already in it. I don't need that new car. I don't need that relationship. I don't need whatever it is that I'm consuming to make me feel whole. I'm already whole. I'm already in it. That's the opportunity with this. And then from there, it's like, well, we tune into that seed of potential that we have. Like, what are you here to become, to express? Not from a place of conditioned, I need to do this job, or I need to own this to make myself feel complete about who I am. It's from a place of, I'm already whole. This is what I'm here. Like a tree grows into a tree, flower blooms. It's like we're here to bloom. And it's in that you'll find your seed and then nurture it. So that's where like the daily log becomes a powerful tool, because it's an ongoing reminder. It's like, where did you find yourself contract throughout the day? I'm going to add into the log. Yeah, I'll share. I was questioning whether I should share, but yeah, what was the feeling around it? So we're going to add in. I'm reminded of the importance of and how challenging it can be to feel. All right, any questions? Sorry, is there any and many people are disturbed when the reaction isn't what they are comfortable with. Yeah, expect from you. Feel everything, but it's difficult to avoid reacting. The thing is, like, that's a beautiful thing. If I can just drop in on that, I feel everything, but it's difficult to avoid reacting. The thing is, we're unconsciously, feelings are happening to us. And their emotions are happening to us, and they're connecting with how we feel about those is relevant to our conditioning. What we're learning to do is meet the moment. It's like, what am I feeling in this moment, and feel it. That's when we truly authentically feel, because we're consciously doing it. It's not actually happening to us. We're meeting it. And it's like, oh, I'm feeling like this morning, like for me, so what am I feeling? I'm feeling anxious. It's like, oh, there's a part of me that's feeling anxious, and I felt it. And then again, what am I feeling now? And it's like, oh, I'm feeling a bit stressed. There's a part of me that's feeling stressed and I feel it. And what happens is underneath that is ease, stillness, is the self, is the I am, is the God in you. So I know this may seem hard right now, but I want to encourage you to practice it. So we'll finish. I know we've gone over. If you do have to go, thanks, Cal. Please do. But we'll just finish with a short, not unlike what we started with, in terms of just honoring the emotion that's arising. And without going into the story, and this is where we learn to disconnect that pattern, Ivan. Trigger, thoughts, emotions, behavior, without going into the story around why it's there. If we can just honor the emotion, and we break that cycle, and that triggered response can, that emotion, that trigger that that response can move through, and the pattern falls away. It may keep coming up until we heal the core wound, but in that moment. And so what we're learning to do here in this meditation is in the moment to just honor the emotion and learn to break that pattern between thoughts and emotions. Thanks, Ruben. Good to see you, man. All right, should we drop in? Does anybody want to say anything before we just drop in? We'll just do 5 minutes. Hey, Cara, did you want to say something, or are you saying goodbye? Bye. All right, much love. Thanks, Cara. Appreciate you. Appreciate having the courage to do the work. This is where, like Kelly mentioned yesterday, it's not often comfortable, but it's the path, it's the way. All right, so the invitation is to just close your eyes. And so this is day 2 of the program and meditation that's in the platform. And so it builds on releasing tension. So we go releasing tension. We won't do that today for just respecting people's time. But we go releasing tension, releasing emotion, and then right breathing. These are all powerful interventions. And this one particularly because, like I said, it helps to break the conditioned pattern response. And so when you find yourself triggered, you can use this, or even just finding the moment throughout the day. It's like just connecting, tuning in, going, what am I feeling? And so we want to resist going into the head and explaining, like, why is this feeling there? We just feel the feeling. It can help to label it. I am feeling, well, there's a part of me, there's a part of me feeling whatever it is for you, whatever's present for you. Might be confusion, be doubt, might be anxiousness. It might be something positive, received as positive, might be ease. And then we just feel it without going into the story. And so if you're feeling challenged with that, it's like, well, okay, that's awesome. So what's in that moment? It's like, what does that make you feel that you're being challenged by that? What does that feel like? Does it feel like you're not getting it? Okay. What does that feel like? And without going into the story, just feel that. And so we're looking for the core feeling, the emotion. Energy and motion. Without any resistance, we just feel it. And then we tune in again. What am I feeling now? And if the mind's making lots of noise, skipping all over the place, that's okay. What does that feel like? Look for the feeling, look for the emotion. And without going into a story, just honor the feeling, honor the emotion. And it may, for some, be stillness. What does that feel like? What are the qualities of that? And then we tune in again to this moment. What are you feeling now? And you may even observe the mind commentary, the thoughts, talking, the narration that's there. How does that make you feel? Connect to the feeling, not the thoughts. And we honor the feeling. And without going into the story around why this feeling's there, you can start breaking these patterns. Without any resistance, we just feel. And let's do it one more time, one last time. What am I feeling now? We label it because it helps then to point to the feeling and just feel it without any resistance. And so this is a beautiful meditation practice. You can just keep going and keep honoring the feeling that's in the moment. And what's underneath the feeling is that self, is the I am, everything and nothing, is the qualities of what Richard Schwartz calls the self, the clarity, the confidence, the connectedness. And it's in this, your best self, you know, we're most adept at being able to then meet life circumstances and perform because we're not caught in our conditioning. And it is a practice. If you're challenged with it, it's okay. It's where you're at. But it gets easier and easier the more you practice. What could be more important than practicing this? Connecting to who you really are. So that's the invitation, is to do your practice. You can log it on the platform. You can simply do the meditation for day 2 or session 2, the second essence, and that will log automatically. And so we're here to support. We're here to support you to do your practice. It's day 2 today, Zenik. Sorry, man. I changed day 3 and day 2 around. Day 3 is releasing emotion. Releasing right breathing. Day 2 is releasing emotion. So when we finish meditation, we tell ourselves that we're about to complete. And so moving slowly so as not to spill the calm that you've created. And so we don't just jump back into the busyness. We can take some time to enjoy the stillness. I appreciate you all. I understand this can be challenging, but like Kara mentioned, like you can get big wins really quickly by leaning into this. And building a habit around this takes a little longer, but I promise you, you can do it. So tomorrow we're actually going to go into a process. So if anybody watching this or is here live has something there for them tomorrow they would love to process, I'm going to run a process live. So we get to see how we actually connect with the unresolved emotional wounds and how we release them. Cool. Any questions before we wrap? Homework is to engage with your daily log, do the active meditation. We're paying attention to what we're feeling throughout the day, and then to do at least a 20-minute meditation on releasing emotion or similar. Any questions? All right, big love, gang. Appreciate you all. I'll see you all tomorrow, same bat time. Cool.